Good evening, everyone. We are beginning our Finance Committee meeting of the Kingston Common Council here at 6:32 p.m. January 10th, 2024. Welcome, everyone. And thank you. As is now our tradition, we will start with the comptroller's update.
Michael, did you get these?
Get a sense of where we are financially in general.
Thank you, Randy. So I did email earlier today, these reports that you have in front of you tonight, as well as my county report out on the system, some parking receivable report. So I'm going to give you updates through November. We're at the time of year where this will probably be the last update I'm able to give you for the 23 year in terms of letting you know exactly where we're going to be. For those of you who've been on the council for a little while, you know that it takes a few months after a year end to wrap up our numbers. We have a report that's due to the state on May 1st. That May 1st, 2024 filing would essentially be our internal final report financially for the 2023 year. That's where we would notify the state controller of our results. The auditors would come in thereafter. They would audit our numbers, and then by September 30th of next year, they would issue their audit report. Hopefully that comes sooner. We always like it to come sooner. For some reason or another, it always seems to come right around September 30th, so right before the due date. So where we stand right now through November, not a lot of change from the prior reports I've been giving on a monthly basis. I think in terms of revenue, you have a sales tax report that shows you cumulatively we're $563,000 ahead of where we were at this point last year. I think we can now comfortably say that we will finish over budget. We're at 17.5 million right now, versus last year we had 19 million, and the collections over the rest of this year could get close to or approximately $2 million. So at this point, I project that we're going to end somewhere around 19.5 million in terms of sales tax. I mean, it is variable based upon the collections. If you remember last year, there was the reduction in the gasoline tax that's not in play at the end of this year. So that should help our year-over-year numbers. But I'll continue to keep you updated on the sales tax anyway as we move forward on a month-to-month basis. By the end of next month, we'll have those numbers. I can tell you where we close out with sales tax. On the spending side, we're certainly tighter, at this point than we were last year. In terms of, some of the major categories, overtime is, not almost fully expended through November, is 93.5% expended. The hospital medical insurance ran over this year. You'll actually see tonight, I have a budgetary transfer for that. We tried to budget that a little less conservatively for 2024, just to try to shrink some of the surpluses that we've been seeing the last couple of years. So, that worked somewhat according to plan. So, you'll see the transfer for that. The revenue's been strong. The sales tax is good. Interest revenue is finishing way over budget this year, in large part due to the interest rates that were forecasted when we were doing the budget back in October of 22. So right now we're $1.29 million for interest revenue for 2023. We had a $310,000 budget, so we're almost $1 million over budget.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's some revenue categories that are falling short. Mortgage tax, that. We saw the sales come down. There's changes in that environment where there were less housing sales. We're probably going to end up several $100,000 under budget for mortgage tax collections. Other revenue categories are relatively in line with budget. But like I said, I'll continue to keep you updated. I don't want to give you a number for 2023. I have an idea of where we're going to end up. If I had to estimate at this point, we're not going to have the surplus that we had in 22. I just don't know exactly where that's going to be. Whether it's going to be a small surplus or negative, but we're still measuring receivables as they're coming in. We still have a lot of bills for 23 that, will be coming in over the next couple of months we have to pay, so just somewhat depends on what hits our desk, but overall, I think, relatively speaking, we're in pretty good shape for 2023. I will often judge it by our cash balances at the end of the year. I typically know where we're at cash wise year over year because this is the tightest cash flow time historically. It's that month or two just before the tax bills start going out, right? So like towards the end of January, we'll start seeing the money come in. We're pretty consistent with where we've been the last couple of years, so.
Okay.
All right.
Any
Good question. Good.
The 3.32% increase in sales tax, are you able to determine where that comes from? Is that online purchasing or in-store purchasing?
No, we don't have any detail on that. Yeah, that flows through from the county level. The big pickup that we saw during COVID, the county was able to do some research talk to New York State. They were able to determine that the online sales were a big pickup during COVID. And if you recall, whoever paid attention to our finances at that time during COVID, there was a big concern that sales tax was going to fall off the table. Restaurants were shutting down, businesses were shutting down. You saw municipalities across the state, taking some pretty drastic measures to cut back on their budget. And we actually saw the opposite. We saw our sales tax revenue increase significantly. And a lot of that was due to online purchases. And if this had happened 20 years ago, it might have been a different story. But now all the major online retailers, and by law, they're all required to collect sales tax remitted to the municipality in which the sales occur, right? So think like Amazon and all that. I mean, they're all reporting sales tax, they're all collecting and sending it to the state. So yeah, we did find during the pandemic. I believe the 22 to 23. My intuition and just understanding of the business environment we're in. I think some of that is just inflationary type, activity, combined with some increased spending. This is what we're seeing right now. This 3.32%. This is closer to what our historical norm is. In terms of like a year-over-year increase. During COVID, we saw some absurd increases year over year. This is getting us back to what we normally would expect year over year, 2, 3, 4% year over year, absent some type of economic recession. During recession a number of years ago, we had a significant drop. Absent that, we normally would expect something like this.
I have a question about the contingency fund balance.
Yes,
So you say here it's 316,420 excluding the transfers,
yes.
and that's once the transfers are made, then it will be reduced?
Yeah, that's just, that does not include, because the transfers just hit my desk today. We'll enter into our accounting system. It was a very small amount. It was like what, 10, 11, clerks had a transfer. There's obviously going to be transfers for year end are going to draw into that. I believe I have one here that's drawing from that. What I hope to do is to find, and I believe with our retirement system, we'll have some funds that we might be able to put back into contingency, because I do expect there's going to be some departments, just based on my review of the reports, are going to need to go to contingency to cover some unexpected expenses for 2023 as they're wrapping up their books.
And what would you say would be the ideal contingency that we should have, year to year?
Well,
500,000 or?
Well,
Or is
ideally,
that sufficient?
well, ideally at the end it's zero. I mean, that's
I see.
perfect,
You use it up.
right?
That's-
You use it up. That's
Yeah,
perfect, right?
Exactly.
Perfect.
Oh, so this is the fund balance.
So what it is right. So the contingency, for those of you who are overly familiar with the term, and we talk about contingency sometimes with fund balance interchangeably, right? So
Right.
the contingency is like a budgetary account, just like any other budgetary account. We put money in there that is essentially for unexpected expenses, as well as potentially for settlements on union contracts and things of that nature. So as things come up during the year, you'll see a transfer, there's unexpected expense in whatever department, they ask for $10,000 from contingency. They take that money out of that budget line, the contingency line, and they put it into, that department's line, right? So we're gradually decreasing that budget. There's never any expense charging contingency, we're just taking the budget money from that account, putting it somewhere else. So yeah, ideally, we draw that all the way down, not that you're looking for unanticipated expenses, but
Right.
to the extent that there's monies left over in contingency, it does tend to increase that fund balance at the end of the year. So, we're trying to manage that fund balance with the fund balance policy. So, what I'm seeing this year, a little more so than prior years, is we are going to that contingency a little bit more this year. I think you see in the last couple of years, our budgets are becoming a little more aggressive, just to try to really actively manage that fund balance, right? It's always that balance of not letting the fund balance get too high because you don't want to overtax taxpayers.
Right.
But we also need a sufficient amount of cash and capital on hand to meet unanticipated expenses, to keep our bond rating up, to keep our debt service costs reasonable. So.
Does our fund balance policy have a specific amount or percentage?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it targets a range of 13 to 20%. And at the end of each year, we measure that, we measure what our fund balance percentage is. Last couple of years, it's been over 20. We then come to common council with an action for that council to take to utilize some of that fund balance to benefit, the city's budget, taxpayers in the future. And typically what we've done is we've recommended to use that fund balance to either pay down debt, to fund capital expenditures that would have otherwise been bonded, things of that nature. You don't want to use it to fund recurring expenses. You want to use it for like one-offs, things that you can benefit the budgets of the future and, put the city in a better financial position. So, when you're paying off debt, you're reducing that debt service in future years, right? So you're reducing the taxpayer burden going forward. Same thing with, paying for equipment or vehicles that you otherwise would have borrowed for, right? I mean, kind of look at it as your own personal checkbook in a way, right? If you had extra cash, you might not go and take a car loan. You might use some of that cash. You might use some of that cash to the down payment or pay for that vehicle, right? So, we try to take the same approach here, and it's worked reasonably well, I think.
Okay, thank you.
3 years ago, I think we used to purchase some police vehicles. 2 years ago.
That was very specific.
Yeah, we want to take an example of
Yeah.
instead of borrowing to buy them. We use them.
This past year, last year, we used it to pay for vehicles. Paying for equipment and vehicles and paying off debt are really items number 1 and 2 every year. I mean, that's what we're trying to target.
All right,
Thank you.
anything else? All right, thanks, John.
Thank you.
So 2 things. One, Chief Ray, the first item here is the budget transfer. That's 0%. This is moving money within your account, right?
From a grant to our accounts,
Yeah.
there's a health grant.
Yeah.
So it's the service contract for the clinician that works there, works with us, and the salary for the part-time EMT that works the boss.
So, in a second, I'll ask you questions, but you all are here to talk about the ambulance issue, or?
He's getting here. The ambulance.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, okay, so we'll talk about that, then we'll move on. I think if everybody's okay, we'll move item number 9 up to the next item to consider.
Yeah, move
Yes.
7 up too.
Yes, we'll do all those.
That way the chief could leave.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll do all those together.
Do you want to stick around for this? That's your last.
Right.
Curator
So,
over there.
Anybody have any questions for the chief on the internal transfer?
And this is only for two months salary. That's it.
Yeah.
So I still got 1 more month. I got December's of 23 also for next month.
Okay, because this is coming from a grant, it's a
Right.
0 financial impact. All right, got a motion to discuss.
Motion.
Michelle Hirsch, second by Sarah Patsy. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Too easy. Okay. All right, we'll move to item number 7, since that's there. This is the purchase of the fireboat. For those of you who are trying to follow at home, this item is at page 29 in the agenda and materials for today.
The committee report is an old committee report, we don't have new names, so Michelle's name is still on there, but Michael's isn't. So Michael, if you want to just sign where Drew is, I think,
Right on.
so just Russell, sorry, I'll see if we can get names.
All right,
It's
so
it's not all.
this item number 7 has to do with accessing funds in order to purchase a rescue boat. A boat. We need a boat. So,
What it is, we applied for a grant, and right now we're in like stage 3 of the grant, through receiving the grant. And in this stage, pretty much what it comes down to is, there's a committee that requires proof that the city has a certain amount of budget in their budget, a certain amount of dollars in their budget for any over expenditures of the boat. So, right now, the grant that proposed receiving is in the tune of $550,000. And they're looking for $20,000 in case of for overage within our budget. And that's all they're looking for is proof. So in order to do that, we have to, have this moved in order to show them that there it is, there's the 20,000. If the vote was over. If you don't receive the vote, we don't spend the 20,000 either. Again, this is, it's all, we're like 3/4 of the way through it before we can announce it, where it came from, so forth and so on.
Right.
But for right now, we just need proof from them that there's the 20,000 the city's willing to put up for any overages in the boat. The boat's gonna take over a year to build, and prices and so forth, so that's what we're really getting with these, they put 20,000 aside, just in case. Doesn't mean it's gonna be spent.
And just to kind of further the reason why we applied for this grant and work to be able to provide this grant is that we currently operate Marine One, which you've probably seen out there. Marine One is a very old vessel at this point in time. It requires a lot of maintenance, and it's really on their last legs. And so this is coming in at a really good time. Because we have both the Round Creek and the Hudson River, it's a very busy marine area, and for our firefighters who are trained in, working on a boat and being able to manage, marine safety, we really cover not only our area, but a large swath of the Hudson, when it comes to these types of emergencies. And so this vessel that we've outfitted or proposed would really allow us to provide that safety. And to give you a sense of what this boat would look like, if you've been out and about on the Rondout over the last year or so, you may have run and seen the sheriff's department. They have a very similar boat that they received funding for 2 years ago, year and a half ago. They just really received the boat. But that would be what it would look like. So it's a kind of aluminum hull. It's almost indestructible. And it will last for a very long time. It'll have a pump on it to be able to, put out fires on any marine vessel. So just to kind of give you an overview of, what this and why this is just so important for us. I mean, boats are not inexpensive, as you can tell, but this is a really amazing opportunity for us. We can work through the grant making process. So just
all right, Steve, and then Michael.
Whoever wants to field this. As you may or may not know, my ward has a volunteer fire department who has a rescue boat. Is this going to impact them? Is it going to put them out of business? I'm just curious as to, is there gonna be a need for them even to be down there any longer?
No, there's not. There's not. You know, the boat will work, the boat will work in conjunction with the sheriff's boat, both very similar, and has far more, advanced technology in the boat. So.
But I think as a part of our, volunteer service, when we have a marine call, our firefighters are generally the first to the boat.
Yes.
If the volunteers are able to get to the boat, I believe that we have protocols that they help us, right?
Yes.
They're there.
So they're still-
Even with the new boat, that same protocol is gonna be.
They can still maintain their operation.
The volunteers own the current boat. I have received, phone contact from the two entities that own the boat, two different volunteer firms. Both entities are, one wants to sell us their half of the boat, they want to know how much we can pay for it. Boats, needs a lot of work, the engines need to be replaced, the pump needs to be replaced, the hull started to deteriorate, so it needs a lot of work. We are going forward with a grant to purchase a new boat, which would be better. So they're looking to sell us their half of the boat, whether they're getting out of it or not having the manpower to respond to it, but they're looking to give us their boat at cost.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I heard they're in desperate need of some repairs on that. Okay.
Michael?
So the purchase of this new boat will theoretically reduce the upkeep costs of the old one?
There won't be any upkeep costs on it.
Okay. And how often does the existing boat go out? Like month to month, how many calls do you get?
I just ran a report today to send off to the Coast Guard. We ran 47 calls last year.
And where is it stored when in use?
The current boat is being stored at a marina across the creek in Connor.
We pay for that?
The volunteers do that, out of their fund, but out of the money they bring in. The new boat will be stored on a trailer. When it's not in the water, it'll be on a trailer on our property.
Oh, okay.
So in that way, when the ice comes and the boat has to go out of the water because of the ice, 2 weeks later, the ice is gone, we can go back on the water. Well, the way the current setup is, we don't have a trailer to take it in and out. The new setup will come with a trailer so we can, as the ice leaves, we can go back into the water right away.
And are all the firemen trained on to use this or just the one down by the station? Or is it a specific task force?
Any other questions?
What happens to the old boat? You're gonna sell it, or is it not even worth it?
That's owned by the volunteers.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
So would it be worth fixing up, just to have on? You don't see any problem with the current new boat that's coming in that you'd ever even need?
It would cost over $100,000 just to repower the old boat.
But the new boat won't be available for what, another year? Is that, so you'll use the current old boat for this particular year? Okay,
And when not possible, we really do have a good working relationship with the sheriff's boat. And so there's been times
okay.
that our staff have actually gone on the sheriff's boat to be able to assist. So it's a good working relationship. Because they're also docked at the same location.
oh, perfect.
On the, in Kingston, just past, kind of by where Riverview Church is. On the
okay.
Strand, there's a little area, and you drive by, you'll see there's a DEC conservation boat, state police, and then, our boat and sheriff's.
Perfect.
And what's the difference in terms of coverage? Where does the sheriff's boat cover and where does our boat?
It's apples and oranges. They're a police boat, we're a fire department boat, so we respond to medical emergencies, that kind of, accidents, fires. They're fire enforcement. They cover the whole county. We cover the city of Kingston, however, we can go outside the city on the mutual aid agreement.
Other questions?
And do we have a mutual aid agreement with like Brian Cliff?
Yes.
All right then. So the report reads, request to transfer funds in the amount of $20,000 from contingency to motor vehicles to support the purchase of a fire rescue boat. The estimated financial impact is $20,000. Your motion discussed. Steve Shabbat, second by Michelle Hirsch. Is there any discussion? We hope this comes through because it sounds like it's really a
Sounds
great thing.
great.
We appreciate the work that you all
It's a
do.
great opportunity. It's a great opportunity. And the boat will be, you know, it kind of leads into the ambulance part. But the boat right now, every time we go up the boat, we have BLS equipment on the boat.
Mhm.
So we're basically bringing the BLS ambulance out to the patient that's out in the river.
Well, and you want to avoid having to have a boat come rescue the rescue boat too.
Yeah. Yeah. That was bad.
All right, then, if there's no more discussion, we'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. And then we'll move to item number 9, the ambulance update and potential request for funds. What's going on with the ambulance service here?
All right, well, thanks for the opportunity to give you an update tonight. So I'm gonna pass around, a PowerPoint presentation that I gave, to the editor chief, to public safety in October of last year. And so I thought I would start kind of at the beginning, because not all of you may have been at that meeting. And now that this is technically our first time at finance, I think it would be good to just kind of give an overview of kind of the background, and then we can kind of talk about, where we are in our current situation, and then kind of where we're going in the future. So just basically, in 2022, we received what is called a certificate of need. So this is the basic premise of, in order to start an ambulance service in New York State, you need to work with the Department of Health to receive a certificate of need for basic life support and to really just start the ambulance service. And so we received that in order to launch our mobile mental health program, which launched in February of 2023. So in order to launch that program, to be able to have an EMT and a clinical technician that we already talked about tonight, we launched that. We were able to purchase an ambulance for a deal on a used ambulance and used our CDBG grant to be able to help pay for that. We then started to, while having that ambulance, we did end up starting to have to provide our very own kind of transport service over the course of 2023. So as you'll see in this, as of when I presented this in October, we had responded 70 times with our mobile mental health ambulance and then a subsequent backup ambulance that we bought, just because we wanted to be able to have a backup to our mobile mental health ambulance in case we ever had any equipment failures with that vehicle. Folks know, I believe, so I don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but we, as a fire department, respond to all calls for service, and including medical calls. And so as a professional fire department, we respond to all of those 911 calls. And as it says here, on average, out of the 5,000 plus calls for service every year, about 3,300 of them are generally medical calls. The other 2,000 are pumping out basements, helping to assist with fires, smoke alarm activations, accidents, and things that, kind of run the gamut of other situations. But many of them, as you can see, are medical calls. And so we're already going to every medical call in the city of Kingston. And we just, weren't in the transport business at the time. And so as we got into the summer of last year, Mobile Life, who had operated in the city of Kingston since the 1980s, through a variety of, and even before that, there was ambulance services that they bought out to be able to kind of and have all generally operated right here on O'Reilly Street. They were purchased by Empress, and July timeframe, they took over officially, and we started to see kind of an increase in call pickups that we needed to make, where because of ambulance service issues across the county and staffing issues, there were just less availability to pick up calls here in the city of Kingston, and so we picked them up with our mobile mental health service ambulance and the backup ambulance. And, we started to think at that time that we really did have an emerging crisis, and we were not the only ones to identify that, right? So across the state and across our county in particular, there's been a urgent need for EMS coverage to expand and to be more timely in responding to pickup patients. And so Ulster County kicked off the actual study, which is still ongoing, to be able to look at EMS care countywide and what the county can do to be able to assist. And we kind of started our own study of like, what can we do to be able to help figure out this situation. And so one of the things that we decided to do was to, start down this road of like, what would this look like? And we started to kick around some ideas. And at that time, we then received a call from Empress, and I believe the chief met with them first, and then a month or so later, we received a proposed contract to sign with Empress. I then met with them in October, I think it was. And we then realized that what they were asking us to do was to sign a yearly contract with them for a fee. Up until now, there was no fee that the city paid. The only fees that were paid were by the insurance companies and the patients to be able to get medical care. Because we were right here next to the hospital system and because of our call volume for the last 30 years, that was enough to be able to run these companies. Now, Empress was telling us that that was no longer the case. And based on our call volume and the type of patients we have and the type of insurance people had, they weren't able to dedicate the staff and the resources unless there was a payment. And so initially proposed to us was to run one advanced life support unit, which includes like a paramedic on board with certain narcotics, and then a BLS unit, which was basically an EMT on board. We, for just over $670,000, and that's after the insurance collections that they received. And so that was kind of like an additional subsidy on top of the money that they would bring in for revenue. And that for us was a large sum of money. And that's when I came to the common council in October. After receiving that, I said to you all at the time that, this is a very serious, thing that we need to consider, and said that, that's what we were going to do. And so we worked to hire a consulting firm called Cambridge to be able to look at not only what it would take to staff and run an ambulance system here in the city of Kingston, but to also work to understand through an RFP process, how much revenue would we really see based on our call volume. And at the time, you'll see that we believed that would take until about April of 2024 to be able to develop that program, to be able to come back to you with, this is, what we need. And then we kind of got the ultimatum from Empress, and I shared that letter with all of you. But basically they said that if we don't sign a contract, even a short-term contract, by January, they were no longer going to service the city of Kingston without this subsidy. And so for us, in December, we kind of had to spring into action, with our staff, who have been amazing, who have stepped up to say, what, the city's been put into a pickle here, not by our choice, but we all recognize we want to be able to make sure that our, residents have the best service possible. And so let's go ahead and step up and try to set up an ambulance program with a few weeks' notice, and to be able to best serve our residents. And so that is the background of basically where we've come from. And I figured now could be a good opportunity to just talk a little bit about what it's been like for the chief and assistant chief and our staff to kind of run this program for the last 10 days, right? We're on day 10. It's
Yes.
felt like a really long time since we took over. And then after that, I'll talk a little bit about what we're proposing our next steps and how I think we can, we still need to continue those things we talked about with the consultant and the RFP, that's all happening in the background. But I think we're gonna talk about what we think we need tonight, to be able to kind of fill in some of these gaps while we continue to make, a decision on how to have the best program we can, that also is affordable for us in the long term. So Chief, why don't you give an update on kind of where we are right now?
Let's go back, you missed the third ambulance.
Sorry, I did miss the third ambulance, that's true.
How we acquired the third ambulance, so
Yeah.
it was November and everything was looking like, we were gonna have to pay. It was just all leading up to that, all the signs are there, we're gonna have to pay. So in November came across our radar, another ambulance close by, which we had eyes on. And, we know a lot from the ambulance service that has it, how they run their business. So I went to the mayor and asked for a third, asked for additional funding, which came from our ARPA fund, for a third ambulance, which would allow us to start off, if we did in December, Empress did say, we're done. Then we start off with 2 ambulances for emergencies and still run our mental health program with the third ambulance. So we acquired the third ambulance on December 27th. Brought it in there. And we don't look pretty out on the street, but it doesn't matter, it's a bad service again, and how quick you get the service.
Right.
So there's a couple different ambulances out there, we also case the fire on. So we got that in service. Manpower, we're just going with people that we have. Right now, like when people were working 24-hour shift, and 24-hour shift, 2 days later, 1 day later, as far as it goes, just to provide you with 2 BLS ambulances. Because if fate would have it, we're missing 2 narcotics from being able to run ALS. We have every other drug. We're missing 2 narcotics. And it's I don't want to get into it long as far as how this came about, but basically it's something as simple as if your driver's license doesn't match the license you put on the application for your resident license, then DEA, that's who we're dealing with, kicks you right out. I mean, it's something as simple as that. So we got all, 2-3 times on ordering these 2 last narcotics to get it in. And, as far as today, we're waiting for an envelope tomorrow that we can send in Florida and get those last 2 narcotics. We've asked the region, which is regional EMS, if we could run ALS with all the other, because we have everything else. And the region said they had to bump it up to Albany. We haven't heard back from Albany. So, it is known out there, Empress is not answering the calls. Empress is getting dispatched on critical calls. Because that's how it's assigned to Ulster County 911. That you gotta have a paramedic bus assigned to the call. If Ulster County call takers assign critical to that call, the information that they get. So, as of today, as of right now, they just went out to that one, 114 calls our ambulances responded to. All 114 calls, our ambulances covered. Okay? We have not yet once, knock on wood, used the third ambulance for the third call. Right now, so we're sending a fire apparatus and an ambulance to the call, like we've always been. The closest help goes to the call, and the ambulance goes to the call. And we covered all 100%. And as far as the transports go, over to Benedictine and turnaround ratio, everything's been working very well, but the men and women of the fire department put a lot into it. And as administration, making the city as safe as possible with what we have. So that's what we're going right now. So there's 3 ambulances down the bottom of the hill, plus the engine, everything, it's crammed in there, we got things going sideways. But we're making it happen because we were taking a stand from the beginning, the fire department's taking a stand all the way back in the early 80s. As far as EMS goes, having everybody trained and send the quickest piece of equipment to that person that's calling for help. And that's what we've been doing, and today that's what we're doing. We're still doing that today. So, but we need additional personnel so that we can take the burden off of the 53 that we have now. and have a mental health ambulance with one EMT assigned to it right now for a period of time. Right now, it's a revolving door who's on the EMS, on the mental health ambulance with the clinician. You know, so it's very hard on her because she's working with a different individual each day. Where it was previous to us getting thrown into the game, there was one EMT assigned, firefighter EMT assigned to that ambulance Monday through Friday. So when she had a partner that she knew, he knew, and they could work together very well on the scene of a mental health crisis. You know, now, this month, we've asked her, we asked her, and she's been very accommodating, saying, you gotta get different partners every day. There's nothing we can do, but, we gotta take the one that was assigned, because he has a higher level of, care, he's a paramedic. And we need him out on the street with our two other ambulances. So.
So I realize it's only been 10 days, but do you have any metrics at all on the comparison of quality of service between what you've done in these 10 days versus what Empress was doing in their forebears?
Quality of service?
Yeah, the time to get to, the scene, time to get people to the facility.
Right now, it's on scene and off scene is quicker. It's just because we're providing BLS service. So a good BLS service, you get them in the stretcher. Your biggest ALS provider is the hospital. And the hospital is only 3 minutes away from within the city. So right now, as far as, I got put out there, they're getting just as equal care, if not better care, than if Empress was here. The only thing Empress has is the drug, the paramedic.
And so, Empress, I was reading in the handout that they could deny service just because they're looking at their bottom line.
Commercial. They're commercial.
So and so did that mean that they might not respond to somebody in the city of Kingston and have to flip it over to you all?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Would they still provide service if somebody needed to be transported, say, to Albany or some other place?
That's, now our ambulance are directed, that's what the paramedic, because we have a paramedic on the ambulance, we just don't have the paramedic equipment in that ambulance. But the paramedic is the highest level of care out there on the street. If he or she deems that person needs to go to Albany from Kingston right now, then they are instructed to go and we'll backfill. If they need to go, if someone needs to go to the NIC unit or the Master Hospital, a child or an infant does, go, we'll backfill. Do not hesitate, ask questions, whether you can or not. So, but for other transfers or scheduled transfers, that's not our game. That would be, Empress is contracted with the hospital to transfer out of the hospital to other hospitals.
I see.
So, we're not into the transfer game. Now, again, we'll do the right thing though. Someone's in a bind and so forth, and they need to transfer from point A to B within the city of Kingston, and we are available, we'll do the right thing. For that resident, we will do the right thing. We're not in that game, but we'll do the right thing for that resident.
Great. Other questions?
Yeah, so when you, drop somebody off at Benedictine, how long does it take for that ambulance to get back into service?
They do they get old Lynn right from Benedictine, and they're actually dressing the gurney up as the higher EMT is in there giving a report to the nurse, so you're talking less than 5, 10 minutes. It all depends on the head nurse, receiving nurse at Benedictine, and how busy they are. And the last couple of days, they're busy. They are extremely busy.
That's my sister, so be nice.
She's been doing a great job.
And no, they know, we're getting, nothing but, I'm not gonna say kudos, but nothing but help from them. Because they know kind of the predicament we're in. And, they're very helpful to us as our crew, because you have people that, come from the ladder truck that are riding the ambulance now. No, sorry, but, their skills are a little on the rusty side, but, some of them are very good skills, but, no, they're very, very helpful with us, but they have gotten kick up and down the last couple of days, and yesterday was an atrocious day for them. But, so, all right, they called us and let us know that they are swamped here, there's no place for a body to be in here. So we did our due diligence, we called around, see what Northern Dutchess has, even though we don't want to transport there, we called the Northern Dutchess. We do the right thing, we always stress to do the right thing for the resident, that's it. And Northern Dutchess said, don't come over here. They got their own problems. And it was like, okay, then.
So where do you go then?
We go with Penny. The other thing is, I mean, you've been a priority patient and they bypass all the other ones that are in the waiting room,
I see.
you know, so they get triage, you got patient coming in
And this is 24/7,
24/7.
and it's the mobile mental health, that's just 10 to 6?
Yes.
Is that the goal to eventually make that 24/7 as well?
The goal would be to do that, yes, someday.
And so for
But
the,
there so we have, just to clarify, so our mobile mental health ambulance is only 10 to 6, but mobile mental health in Ulster County is 24/7, and they will still respond at all hours of the day and time. And if when the mobile mental health clinician from mobile mental health, which also covers Kingston, in addition to our clinician, if they ever need an ambulance for a transport, they will still call us and we will still go. Just to
and
clarify that.
is our service area just Kingston, or do you go out to Portland?
Right now, we're too far away from that. We have to get up and get running ourselves, self-sufficient, and running somewhat smoothly. This is new game that we're in. And we're gonna take time, and the mayor and I basically made, stand fast that we gotta get the 9 square, I call it, settle it first. Now, obviously, all bets are off. If we have a bus crash or something like that, where it's an MCI, all bets are off. Do the right thing for that person, or for those people. If they have a bus crash on the throughway or right here, we do the right thing. But otherwise, normally, it's 9 square for us.
And for the revenue, whose job is that to talk with the insurance companies to get the revenue?
Yeah,
from
so
these calls?
let me get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't we, we'll do the expense first and then we'll do revenue.
Okay.
And then, because that's a whole thing to talk about. So does anyone have any other like operational?
Michelle,
I just was, thinking about, we did have a situation where the hospital had, all the ambulances on diversion. And if that were to happen again, would we have enough coverage if we were having to leave the city of Kingston?
If the hospital's on diversion, everybody's in the same boat.
Right.
Commercial, volunteer, career, we're all in that same boat. So everybody's in it.
Mhm.
I mean, we have 3. We have 2 out there, we have the mental health bus, if available, or a 3rd one. So, but there wouldn't be, if we can't drop them off there, then Empress can't drop them off, West Hurley can't, Solis can't. We're all in the same boat, we'll all be in the parking lot together. The patient inside the ambulance waiting to be accepted in.
And the only benefit for us is that we then have 49 other EMTs that are able to ride around in firefighter apparatus
Yeah.
and still help people where
Yeah.
unfortunately a lot of the towns surrounding us don't have EMTs like we do. I mean, every single one of our firefighters are EMTs. So that's a huge benefit for us because we can still help people. We may not be able to transport them right away, but we can at least keep them stable, keep them at the scene until there is an ambulance for them, which is beneficial to us compared to some of the rural areas where it is harder to get EMTs to them.
Thank you.
any other questions on that score? All right, so then what are we looking for here?
Well, so next, if it's okay, I'd like to talk about kind of the ask and then also then talk about future revenues, potentially how we will handle that. So we've kind of looked at this in 2 phases. Our kind of first initial, we need some more staffing to be able to help operate this program in a more stable condition, one that requires less on overtime. As because right now it's all being run on overtime because we want to be able to make sure that we're still being able to have the fire service continue to keep everyone safe here in the city, and that it cannot last both from our staff's perspective, but also just the financial perspective for the city. And so we are trying to find a balance of like what we need right now versus what we're gonna come with in kind of this next round. So first, at this point today, we're going to be asking to hire 8 additional staff. And in that staff, our goal is to be able to hire 3 paramedics and 5 EMTs. And that all, and why we've come up with that number is that that's going to basically add approximately 2 people per shift. And that will help us be able to meet kind of our current needs. Still, there's going to be some overtime on certain shifts at certain times. But it's going to allow us to kind of get, the program moving forward still. At the same time, we have a list that we can hire medics off of right now, where we've got 3, we believe at least 3 paramedics on that list that are hopefully the canvases will be back tomorrow.
Yes.
And so we're hoping that they canvass that they do want to work for us, and we'll be able to do some very immediate hiring. That list will then be exhausted when our new list comes out, because the test is Saturday for firefighter paramedics. And that we've gotten a really great response for. I don't know how many people. 66. And so it's going to give us a much more diverse pool of applicants, and hopefully many of them have some paramedic skill sets already, or at least they're EMTs and going toward being paramedics. And we will then have another group of people. That test is Saturday, so we won't get test results back for about 2 months. And so it kind of also gives us some time to, for our second phase, by then, we will have gotten our results back from our kind of in-depth study that we're doing in terms of call volumes, heat mapping in terms of where all of our calls are. This consultant is looking at calls from the last couple of years, and all of the data associated with types of calls to really be able to tell us exactly how many people we need. We know we at least need 8 because if we're going to be having 2 ambulances and there's 2 people per ambulance, and we know that our current staffing levels of only 12 or 13 per shift, that's not going to, we don't have enough people. And so, but 8, I think, is enough to get us through that period without hiring too many, without knowing what these results of these studies are going to be. But I know that the studies are going to come back saying we definitely need more than 8 people. But we think that this is a good place to start, especially based on the current list that we have to hire off of. That study will come back, and at the same time that is happening, we're going to be talking a lot about revenue. And so we are working with a consultant, John and our team, to be able to develop what exactly are we asking for in terms of an insurance billing company. And so there are lots of companies out there in the world that work cooperatively with fire departments, where on the scene, we take someone's name, date of birth, we detail what we do for them, and then we provide that information to an insurance biller, who will then code that call properly, then reach out to the person, find that person in the insurance world to figure out whether they have Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance, or no insurance, and then handle that appropriately based on guidelines and policies that are kind of in the medical world, how that should be handled. That will provide revenue to the city based on, examples of our call volumes, on other communities. It could range anywhere from $1 million to $2.5 million, depending on exactly the types of calls we have, the types of insurance people have, and just how busy we are in terms of transporting people. That will really help us then determine the appropriate, kind of cost benefit analysis of exactly how many staff we need versus the call volume. And so our consultant's going to tell us how many they think we need. We're then going to have a revenue number that we will be able to relatively verify based on the past call volumes, and then be able to put those 2 together to find out, what is the happy medium of, being able to do this that still is not costing the taxpayer in Kingston too much, but still allowing us to provide really excellent service and a way that for us as a municipality, also provides service to everyone regardless of their ability to pay. And I think that that's also really important as we kind of develop this program. And so that's kind of, you may have more specific insurance questions, but we can't answer those yet because we, one, don't know what company we're going to work with, and our consultant who's going to help us work through finding the best company, will be able to come to you and we'll meet with you to kind of answer the more specific questions about how this all works, and be able to then have that company come in and talk to us about how this all works, how do co-pays work, how do they not work, how do we, collect this funding from different parties. We'll be able to answer all of those questions for you, which I know it's definitely of interest to people, but we just don't have that information yet, unfortunately, to be able to answer those questions in detail or at all, really, this time. John, would you like to say anything about? Yeah.
Well, maybe just one layer of detail that we've talked about more recently. So we are working with this company to issue an RFP and evaluate the responses of the RFP for this biller. Our communication with this, our consultant points to us being able to capture revenue retroactively on some of these calls. So, we don't know exactly how far back we'll be able to go. It appears that it would be a minimum of 90 days for most insurers. We might be able to go back further with Medicare. There's the saving grace here is that, KFD is providing service right now, and this isn't, even though we don't have a biller in place right now, this isn't necessarily all lost revenue. We should be able to, speaking with our consultant, we'll be able to capture a lot of this revenue, so. What's it?
Can I interrupt you?
Sure, yeah.
As of January 1st, all paperwork is being done as if we are billing.
Okay.
You're getting all the appropriate information
Okay.
in anticipation of back billing, yes.
And I would expect by the end of, hopefully sooner, but I would expect by the end of March, we'll have a bill in place. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to. Hopefully it's much sooner than that, but conservatively, our consultant thinks we could have someone by mid-March. So, I think that RFP is probably getting close to being complete in terms of issuing it, then it's on the street for several weeks to a month. We'll get the responses back, he'll help evaluate it, and then we'll, move forward.
And I think that just the last thing that I'll add, and then, is that, as a part of this process of, hiring now, going through all these processes in between, coming back again in a couple of months, we also, during that time frame, are going to work with the members of the Kingston Professional Firefighters Association to be able to, put together an MOA on some certain things related to, compensation and other things related to it, because we've never had paramedics before. And so that is also kind of a new kind of job duty. And so we're going to be working with them. And so we'll be coming back to you with that as well, just to kind of complete the picture of kind of some of the documents that you're going to be seeing as finance over the next couple of months is, a request for employees now, and a transfer, and then later on, potentially an additional request for employees, adding revenue back into the budget, and then potentially, working with our, to settle an MOA, would kind of complete the current picture. And the last thing that I'll add about kind of revenue, and it's revenue in the end, but one of the things that our team is also working on is that because we're going to be because these are firefighter paramedics and firefighter EMTs, and we're going to be adding to the collective force, not only does this provide us, more firefighters in the time of crisis, more people are available to come back, more people are able to help. We have a 5-alarm fire type situation. It also allows us to apply for additional grant funds. And so there is an Assistance to Firefighters grant. That is kind of the new name. It used to be called SAFER, but the city has received funding before where it actually helps us to hire firefighters. And the grant pays almost 100% up front, and then it winds down over 3 years where the city pays a higher and higher kind of share of it until eventually the city's paying for their whole entire salary. And so in the grants are coming out next month to apply. We expect to apply, and that is also going to help us pay for some of these new employees, especially the next contingent of employees that we're hoping to hire would be under that type of grant program, which will allow us to hopefully, enter into this program in a kind of a slow fashion in terms of the buildup of costs, as we also build up our revenue at the same time. So I just wanted to add that to this overall conversation.
Is your question about revenue?
Yes, sir.
Good.
So I think this is a great idea, and we should be moving forward. But if the consultants come back and say this is a dreadful idea, it'll never be revenue neutral, we've already hired these 8 guys, is there a need for them in the fire department, or would we be laying them off?
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, there would be a need for them in the fire department long term with the growth that we hope to have in Kingston. I do think that we need to grow the fire department. But I think that the consultant may come back and say taking on ambulance service is a bad idea, but either way, we still are gonna have to spend almost about the same amount of money paying a private company that it would cost to hire the agent. And so that's, I think, the balance there. That's why I feel very comfortable making this initial investment, because regardless, we're gonna have to spend money, whether it's with a private company or taking this on ourselves. And so, worst case scenario, we decide at some point to get out of the ambulance business and pay, a company to do it. I do think that we do need firefighters in the long term. Yeah.
One thing though, if you take this on, we control the ambulance.
Yeah.
We control where it goes. We do, instead of, the contract with someone, but have control of the ambulance.
And just if I could just add too, I mean, in terms of like, the finances of it, as the mayor said, there would otherwise be a significant, financial outlay to a third party to contract it out. Obviously, we're going to try to capture whatever revenue we can, and however, I don't think at this point, and we'll see what comes, when the consultant comes back. I'm not convinced it'll necessarily be revenue neutral. I mean, that would be wonderful if it gets to that point, but we're fully cognizant that we're not even in a revenue neutral situation right now, because like the mayor said, if we don't move forward, we're gonna have not only are you now paying the price that the third party is asking for now, we've seen with other third parties that price can change and it can go up from year to year. Not to say you're held hostage to it, but you're kind of held hostage to it once you're committed to paying a third party for an annual service. So, as Chief said, at least then we control our costs a little bit more when we're running it. But so far, I mean, the finances that we've looked at, look somewhat favorable, but, we recognize that staffing, it's an expensive endeavor. We hope that we can recoup a large part of that with the insurance billings, but, it's not just a financial, it's a quality of life and service that we're looking at in place.
Are there any issues about where the extra staff would be stationed? Where the extra machinery will be stationed and?
No, right now, both ambulances are stationed right down the hill. And the staff's not gonna increase at that firehouse any more than what's there now.
So
And they're all fully
double up.
fitted,
You're not gonna have people double up in bunks or anything?
no bunk beds now.
Okay, all right.
I think based on the call volume, are you guys sleeping much? I don't think so.
I did have one slightly technical question. Can you explain what the difference is between EMT and paramedic in terms of training, education, experience?
The 2 days, 6 months, twice a week.
Now, a basic EMT program is generally about 9 months long, including the time that you have to put in, still either coming and riding with, which we had EM students riding with us, or at the hospital. Paramedic program, a accelerated one can be done in 9.5 months. And that's basically going to school full-time, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Otherwise, it's a year, a little over a year and a half of time. Paramedic is able to start IVs, administer medications in the field, whether you need them to reduce your blood pressure or stabilize your heart problem, or if you have a stroke which is going on, they can start treating you with medications till we get to a stroke facility, which is the best stroke facility now is down in Hudson Regional. Or if a critical person having a heart attack, as the chief has said before, the paramedic would be able to administer medications to them to get them to Vassar, where they can do an advanced catheterization. They can do limited catheterizations over at Health Alliance right now, but they can't do, if there's a problem, they need to open the person's up to do an open heart surgery on them, they can't do that over here. So basically, that's what you're in there to do, is to get the medications to get you going and stabilize you a little bit. I mean, right now, on the basic level, we're scooping you up and bringing you to the hospital. So we can give you, but we can do certain things. We can give you breathing treatments, and we can give you epinephrine for allergic reactions, stuff like that.
And deliver your baby.
And deliver your baby is a basic skill, if anyone can do that. So,
We've done that, they've never done that, maybe not back again, so we were. No, that is the difference, and then is that the education and the ability to do that, do drugs and so
Taking
forth.
medication.
Give the medications and, stop something right away,
Yes.
so that is it.
So higher level of medical expertise and intervention.
Yes.
Paramedic is the highest level of recognized care outside of the hospital setting.
Okay. Good. All right. Thanks. Just want to clarify so we know who we're hiring.
I don't know if I mentioned it before, but we have 3 of those, right? Three
Right now, we have 3 paramedics that can practice in Ulster County, and again, New York State's broken up in regions. And we have a 4th paramedic that cannot practice in Ulster County, but can practice in Albany County. He just didn't come down, he hasn't taken the regional one, regional being here, Orange County, Dutchess County, like practice down here. It's paramedic's a paramedic to me, but, they gotta play by the rules, and he got all his certification up in the Albany area. And that's something, again, with the paramedic program is where they test out. If you don't want to test out in Albany, where the regional's up there, if you're gonna be working here.
So is that paramedic going to be,
The paramedic has to go.
do the training here and the
They
testing
have
and
to
get
go to
certified?
training here and go through the skills that Ulster County, or this region, how many regions?
it's just a region, I think.
It's a regional.
You're right.
They do a different type of skill than maybe Albany County does. So he had to do a test here, written test here, and then perform the skill.
But that person is in line to do that,
The person,
the person who is
they just don't,
licensed in Albany.
they just, we're looking for when will we should do something like that.
Okay,
That's, they're not scheduled,
got it.
so on.
Great. Thank you.
Good.
So the question then, I suppose right now is amount, because the committee report has nothing listed for the financial impact.
And so we have provided, I think John has copies of an updated committee report and a spreadsheet associated with all that that we can pass around. But in general, to be able to hire 8 staff starting in February, it would be a little over 800, and it's $359. And that would be from February to the end of the year, and that includes all the pay, as well as the increases in a couple of lines related to them just having 8 more staff, and some additional, and that also includes benefits and retirement and all the things that come along with staff.
And so, John, we won't have any clear idea about what this would mean for the 2025 budget for a while, right?
No, because we were actually talking about that today, you could potentially see where, the ambulance service kind of gets carved out into one section. We want to see, obviously, will be revenue to budget, there will be staffing, there's gonna be some other hard costs, but, no, we're not gonna be able to see what that number's gonna be yet. Really need to see what the revenue side's gonna be. But, there is, I was looking at the state chart of accounts, there is a 4-digit code for ambulance service, where, you could carve out for the fire department like an ambulance service line, so you'd actually have a page for ambulance service. And, that might help for, tracking and, monitoring what the, revenue expenses of that. I don't know that it would be perfect because there probably would be some overlap between fire and ambulance, but just like there's a public works where ways kind of go back and forth between different functions, sanitation and streets, et cetera. But I think it would give you an overall, pretty good view of what the, the finances of that service look like.
So the 859,000 that we're looking at here would be for personnel and equipment through the end of 2024. For 8 people.
This would be for the 8 people, which would be offset by some revenue number at this point. We don't know. Additionally, as the mayor mentioned, there could be, after the consultant finishes their work, there could be an ask for additional staffing. We're just not there yet.
And I believe we're over our recommended percentage for fund balance, right?
We were as of the end of 22, 23 numbers not there yet, but yeah.
But we're not.
Yeah,
Certainly.
we certainly can do this financially.
Okay.
And will the paramedics be paid the same amount as the EMTs?
For now, until we come back
Oh,
with
yes,
the
that's-
way with the union, we're negotiating that tomorrow, actually. Starting the negotiations tomorrow.
Sorry to jump the gun.
Yeah.
Your thoughts are in line with other thoughts.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
then, so the committee report reads request an $859,595.56 transfer from fund balance for the attached to fund staffing and other costs necessary for King Fire Department to provide ambulance services. Do we have a motion to discuss? Motion. Steve Shabbat, second by,
And do we need to make an amendment to add that amount since it was blank?
no, it's here now. That's, I read that. Any discussion?
I think this is great. It should be permanent.
I'm with you on that.
And thanks for all the work you've done to put this together too. And for what you're doing to serve the residents of Kingston.
It's fire department's always been like that, from '86. From '86 on.
And before that?
My whole life.
The EMS program was up and running before I came,
Okay,
so.
but thank you. It's great.
In that case, then, if there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you all for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. They're all leaving us.
All right. We will move back. Actually, I'm gonna, with y'all's forbearance, I'm going to move, we'll skip, item number 3 for now. And go to item number 4. Kit Potter, thank you for being,
Oh, it's
I'm
one.
sorry, Tawana. Thank you for being patient. It's internal transfers, reconcile accounts. Juan, is there anything in particular you think we need to know here?
No, I just followed the instructions that John had asked me to do, to use some of my budget money to do the transfers to help out.
All right, but so you're not in any need of any extra money as you're thinking?
No, no, sir.
Okay. Any questions for Tawana? Where is it here? Here we go. So the committee report reads, internal transfer of funds to accommodate currently listed overspent accounts. $874.04 from contracted services to vacation payback, $316.54 from contracted services to social security account, $1 from contracted services to postage, freight, and express. Look out with all that mail. $120 from contracted services from minor office furniture and equipment account, and $5 from dues and our associated fees to longevity account. And the estimated financial impact is $0. Do we have a motion to discuss? Sarah Patsy, second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Tawana. We appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you and have a great night.
All right, Kit, sorry for getting your hopes up. Now it's your turn. All right, so need to move some money in your account. What's up with this? Oh, you're muted.
Here I am. Pretty self-explanatory there. Nothing complicated, just unanticipated over expenditures. And Social Security, hospital and medical, dental and optical. I think John alluded to that earlier. And then, of course, general materials and supplies was my error. I thought I had enough, but I was double checked on that, so I'd like to transfer the 4554
We're skipping
to that line item.
just until, because we've got live people. Sorry, Kit.
Okay.
Well, I was quelling the rabble. Good. Any questions for Kit then on this request? No. Okay, then, motion to discuss.
Second.
Motion by Michelle Hirsch, second by Sarah Pasty. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ooh, sorry, all opposed? Forgot to read the description. It says, 2023 budget transfer to utilize $2,776.70 in carryover grant funds to cover unanticipated expenditures. So it's moving money from the grants line to, as Kit mentioned, general materials and supplies, social security, hospital medical, dental insurance, and optical insurance. The estimated financial impact is $0. Thank you, Kit. We appreciate the art. Oh, and you've got a thing coming up on Thursday. Right? What is that?
Pardon me?
The arts master plan.
Oh, tomorrow the Arts Commission will be discussing the first draft of the municipal art plan. So if anyone has any time, and I know that you're all working very hard, would love for you to sit in and lend your comments. I will be making appointments with all of you and give you the Reader's Digest version, I promise.
All right, and where and when will that meeting be?
That will be Thursday, January 11th, conference room 1. Or if you want to participate, please indicate that to me and I will send you the Zoom link. If not, we're live on YouTube, the City of Kingston's YouTube channel. And that will be 4:30.
4:30. Great. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
right, we're now going to jump backwards in the list of items to the request from Parks and Recreation. This is another year-end internal budget transfer to reconcile department accounts. Estimated financial impact is $0. Do you have a motion to discuss?
Motion.
Steve Shabbat, second by Sarah Pasty. All right, the report reads year-end internal budget transfer of $11,100 to reconcile department accounts. This is detailed on the attached spreadsheet. So any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Request passes unanimously. All right, so we will now move to fire rescue item number
6.
no, we did 6. Oh, that's Chief Tenty. It's got the same first name as Chief Ray. All right, sorry. Budget item number 6. This is also a internal request. The report reads internal budget transfer to cover overages of several accounts. Estimated financial impact $0. Do we have a motion to discuss?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Steve Shabbat, second by Sarah Pasty. Yeah, so this is moving from various accounts to other accounts. There's an attached list if anybody's interested.
Do we know what the overtime is for?
Overtime.
Yes, but specifically for what purposes?
It's a variety of reasons. It's a lot of it's manning. As I reported throughout the year, I mean, one of the issues that the KPD has had, and the council entertained an MOA recently regarding this matter, but there's been staffing shortages at KPD. So you're seeing where the chief is actually able to pull money from regular pay because he's, in this case, he's taking $152,000 from regular pay. They have a number of vacancies on their force, and it's just forcing mandatory overtime. So, and that, I mean, that's part of it, but I also see, we see every overtime sheet that comes through. A lot of it's mandatory, where it's, someone's covering for somebody's personal day or vacation day, sick day, other things are investigations, different events, but certainly the staffing shortages is a large driver in that overtime number that you see there.
And the electricity increase, is that, or do we calculate every department central Hudson bill separately?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, almost every expense account in the city is allocated out to the department. All the utility bills are. There's a handful of accounts like liability insurance is citywide, workers' comp insurance is citywide, but, all benefit costs, hospitalization, retirement, that's all calculated to the department level. And they all, within their department budgets, they have all their, individual line items, but yeah, that's all calculated right there. And we have, it's funny, I'm actually in the process of bidding out the electricity right now. We have over 100 electricity accounts in the city. So, yeah.
They think they should give us a discount.
Yeah.
Just to fill you in, Michael, we actually met with Chief Tenty in the fall, and we were talking about person power over there, and they're having a real dilemma of getting anybody that they can find to hire. The number of people who are signing up to take the civil service test, the number of people who are actually going through the training, who can make it through the training. So our concern was partly about diversification in terms of traditional marginalized groups and so forth. Then he's like, we can't get anybody, period. So that's part of the reason for the overtime. They've got a couple of retirements and they can't fill the positions. So.
Yeah, we're just to give you an idea right now, We still have some year-end entries. We have to accrue the, a payroll there, but, before this last payroll, their original regular pay budget before they modified it to use it to cover other overages, which probably was for overtime. Their original budget was nearly $6.6 million in the KPD for just the straight salary. As of prior to last payroll, they'd only spent 5.9, so they're over $600,000 under original budget with regular pay, and that's just from all the vacancies. This next payroll will chew up some of that, but they're gonna be hundreds of thousands of dollars underspent on their, regular pay line. And yet, I mean, it's driving up the overtime cost.
I don't have any more questions.
All right, then if there's no further discussion, call for the vote, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Eight. So item number 8 then, this is on page 35. Those of you who are seeking out. So I had a question about this one, John. This is a transfer in the clerk's office. It'll have a $60,000 financial impact, and it's to move money from contingency to the funds for judgment and claims. What is that?
What is
for?
it? I had a question about that too.
That is for all the co-pays. That is for the co-pays, or I say co-pays, sorry. That is for our deductible for lawsuits, claims filed against the city that are administered by our insurance company. We have a $50,000 deductible in cases on some of these. So, it's always kind of a crapshoot when we budget that line item. We try to budget it based on history, and it really, it's like a wave. There's years where it's very high, years where it's low. We used to have quarterly meetings with our insurance agent to try to get a better sense of where we're going to be. It's just ultimately, it's some of these claims that you're seeing have been out there for years, and it's just when they settle. And so it's really hard to forecast that budget. We try based on history, but periodically, probably more than not, it goes over budget.
And all of that goes through the clerk's office, and that's why it's tied to this?
Yeah, I mean, right, the clerk administers that account. All insurance claims get filed through the clerk. They communicate with the insurance agent. I mean, my office does as well, but officially, everything goes through the clerk's office. And then the vouchers that you'll see that get signed by the common council for those claims are handled by the clerk's office.
John, do you have a committee report for this?
Which one? First?
Yeah, for the $50,000.
No.
We have a
Just
blank.
looking to see if it's in there. I have a blank now.
It's not in the packet, Rennie?
I can't find it.
There's so many of them.
You woke up Andrea.
Sorry about that.
It's very easy. Ed just likes to stand in random spots in the house and wait for me to walk by and I scream. That's very scary.
If anybody wants to take a little break, we'll
Yeah,
have
it's
for a
just
minute.
gonna ask if.
It'll take me a second.
Yeah, right, it's not a verified number here too. Because I just want to make sure.
I know
It's
these chairs are
okay
pretty heavy.
before you
There
take
should
it.
be blank committee reports in the majority leader's
Yeah,
office.
we're good.
I look at this.
Just writing it up.
I didn't hit out my last time. Oh. How much is it, 60 from contingency?
Yes.
Yes.
Let me just get to the,
It's page 37.
get to my transfer. I may have you take it from fund balance, right?
Okay,
All right, I just wanted to look at the number here.
so the amount will keep the same. right?
Yes, it'll still be 60,000.
I did.
I just wanted to make sure you saw
I
it.
don't know.
I can read it out.
Great. Let's see. Here it is. Oh, fee schedule, here it is. Maybe she didn't.
Yeah, you're right, sorry.
Somebody,
Yeah,
spoke. Sorry,
yeah, I'm sorry.
Tanya spoke at the Conservation Advisory
Oh.
Committee last night about this issue, about this frontage.
Emily's the.
Chair.
Can I give you a different,
Mine.
take it from separate, just to see.
Tell me what to do.
Fund balance, and the account number is 999, it's 49.5901, fund balance transfers.
What's the number in judgments and claims?
It's hers. Let's see her. It is, A1 1930.5401.
Sorry, A1
30.5401. And the other, yeah,
1930.
and the fund balance transfers is A1 999949.59. Okay.
Like that?
That's it. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Great. So the committee report now reads, request transfer of $60,000 from fund balance to judgments and claims. Financial impact is $60,000. Do we have a motion to discuss?
Motion.
Michelle Hirsch, second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. That, the ambulance update. So we're moving to item number 10, which is page 45 in your books, or rather in the materials.
There
So,
she is. Hello.
yes, Michelle, do you want to remind us what this was about, and then we'll go to the.
Yeah, so last month, we were discussing setting a fee under, or code under 277 for, boarding houses. To get a license, that would go through the city clerk. It's the same section of the code that we are like doing the licensing for the short-term rentals, so it's the same section.
And so far, there has not been a license fee required.
No, so this is,
Okay.
yeah, and I guess there was an internal meeting, and they set a fee they thought would be reasonable of 150, so it's not creating a burden on, anyone. Do you want to add anything, Barbara?
Yeah, first of all, can you all hear me? I'm just plugged in
Yes.
this new camera. Great. So it's actually working. So I just wanted to clarify that the 277 one fee would apply to all transiently occupied or properties that are being used in the transient fashion, separate from the short-term rentals, which are covered by Bartek's separate licensing process. So the 405 chapter that was amended, addresses short-term rentals. There's a permit that's required. That's $650 and assessed differently. And then Bartek has the software to sort of stay on top of that compliance. It looks like, at least in recent years, we have not ever organized in a consistent fashion. All of our records on the transient properties that would include boarding homes, but also cover our hotels, motels, inns, bed and breakfasts, and that's always been in the code. And so one of the first steps was even just combing through our records and consolidating, figuring out who is here operating in this fashion, how have the licenses been issued, where they're recorded, and the fee is, an important first step, for you all to consider. But this process of coming up with much more consistent and uniform record keeping about the transient properties is a really important undertaking that, Elisa has been creating materials for. Steve Knox and I have been working with Sue Cahill and Bartek to figure out how can we keep accurate, consistent records and know who's actually here doing this type of business. So the licensing fee is an important part of making sure that we maintain those records appropriately.
All right, questions? Questions, emendations?
Are we including on the same committee report the second piece of this? Or,
I would like to make that two committee
yeah, I
reports.
think that should be different, yeah.
Is it in one committee report right now?
Well, it's on one letter, there's no committee report.
Oh, okay, so yeah, I would like to, because I have comments on the second.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm fine, I think 150 is
More than
a fair.
Seems like a
Yeah.
reasonable fee.
Alright, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Fred, minus amongst yourselves.
I have, started for instance, like, Japanese curry breaks. For the bunch of the teams and it's all parents and curry break.
I don't know.
They're so good.
Where do you get them?
Never in the past.
Which section is it?
In the Asian food aisle. Until
Okay.
by the chopsticks.
Got it. I know
It's like
exactly
the
where
wall
that is.
thing.
Okay.
It's like Japanese curry, it's different, it's kind of like soup. It's like soup, it's like goodness.
Yes, it should be. Oh, that would be great. Here's some, I have two signatures. You want it? These are
How
all
I know
signed.
this work.
Vouchers for payments. Well, yeah.
All of my questions.
Your questions.
Okay, cool.
This is an annual fee, right?
That's right. The licenses under the 277, I think it's 3, maybe. They expire on December 31st of every year. So part of what's already gone out is a letter to all potentially covered property owners, alerting them to the fact that the council was considering the fee and that they would be afforded an extension of time to come into compliance with this requirement, but going forward, I think the goal would be to alert all potentially affected property owners before, maybe a month or two before the end of their expiration date, so that they could schedule the required building inspections, not have them all sort of concentrated into the last week of the year. And then from there, they would just renew on that annual basis.
Great. I have written the committee report to read. Please tell me what to change, if anything. Set annual fee for a license to operate hotel, motel, inn, boarding house, lodging house, rooming house, association, club, or any business renting rooms as per Administrative Code, Section 2771 at $150.
Okay. I just want to ask for your forbearance for a second. There is a delivery guy. Give me 1 second, and I'm going to step off camera, and I'll be right back.
Delivery guy.
Oh.
She's getting my food.
Oh.
For pizza. That's all.
The last meeting was, 5
You signed it in the book? Oh, sure. Yeah. So we can send it over to all of us. I think these are all I need.
The department will look at it first, and then to the extent they need assistance, they would follow my department.
It's not just.
The issue, we haven't had the crazy number of bills, but we've had our issues with getting bills,
Do you have an idea about
being able to decipher the bills,
50,000?
contacts at Central Hudson continually changing. It's honestly, it's kind of.
All right. So I read the committee report. Do we have a motion to discuss?
Motion.
Motion by Michelle Hirsch, second by Sarah Kinsey. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, the second one has to do with fees for granting licenses for a time limited authorization to use and/or intrude upon municipal property for a specified purpose. So this is different from the fee relating to in the summer when a restaurant, say, takes over a parking space, right? This is not that same.
Potentially. But, quite frankly, I did not go back through our archives to figure out how the city has in the past charged a fee when granting any license. I'm not sure that there is a central repository of information on what, if anything, ever has been charged. This came to light after the conversation last month about a potential easement. And the consensus was that an easement, which is a much more permanent interest, was not the way that the council wanted to proceed and didn't kind of make the best sense. And so as we were talking about a license, we realized that there is actually no license fee. And then sort of like the license, other type of license we just spoke about, there's also a kind of central record keeping that facilitates oversight and compliance work, that having even this type of license with a fee recorded in the clerk's office would allow for better monitoring. It would have to be renewed annually. And anytime those licenses would be granted, the second type of license, there would also be a record and archive that anyone, including members of the council, could obviously review. And then there's also an opportunity to perhaps not grant a license renewal if whatever conditions or requirements were written into that initial license had not been satisfied.
Great. In your letter here, could you explain what you mean by time delimited?
Annual.
Ah, okay. Because I read that as forever.
I apologize to everybody. I have to be someplace in a little bit, so I'm leaving after. I wanted to throw in my 2 cents on this. I think you all saw the email from Emily, and I agree with her. I think $100 a year is too low. So, I mean, yes, it may just cover the admin part of it, but we're also authorizing them to use, you know, what would be our property. So hopefully you would consider a higher price on that. So I apologize, I can't stay for the rest of the meeting or this conversation, but just wanted to throw my 2 cents, if it means 2 cents or 1 cent or.
Andrea, before you go, I'll just add that, you know, it was hard to find an exact comparator in other cities for what a license like this might, you know, cost to administer or to, you know, for the application. I saw similar universe of licenses that ranged anywhere from like 100 to 250. While there is an administrative burden, and I think that was really the focus when we were talking about it, and we didn't want to make it too burdensome, obviously, you know, there is some even legal review. Like the license that we're talking about is one that obviously, you know, Matt in my office is doing some work on. So it might make sense to, you know, look at a slightly higher amount, but I wouldn't want to recommend anything too high because we don't want it to be overly burdensome.
250 then?
I'm sorry?
Would you be comfortable with 250?
I would. I mean, I know, again, people were, you know, concerned about making it too burdensome, but again, 250 doesn't seem unduly, you know, excessive.
And I think the other point, if we received a letter, and the other point in the letter had to do with the size of the encroachment, and maybe, is there a way to make it?
Sorry.
Is there a way to make it relative to the amount of encroachment?
So really, there's a separate issue when we're talking about the fees. They should be really focused on the administrative or the cost associated with whatever, you know, we're looking at. And in this case, it is clearly the administrative burden. There is some, you know, additional review from my office or maybe something from planning or Bartech or something like that. So that could be added in as something akin to an administrative cost. I don't think we necessarily would be trying to take a portion of anyone's profit, but, you know, given the issue, maybe it requires a more stringent level of review. And so that might be a reason to increase it slightly if that's how you felt about it.
Other questions for Barbara?
I guess just confirmation that this would be an annual fee that someone would be paying. And it could also be adjusted at some point, say 10 years from now. A council decided they wanted to increase it or make changes. These fees can always be adjusted, correct?
Probably not, of course. I mean, you guys review the fee schedule on an annual basis. And so, you know, if you didn't want to go up to 250, you could say 200 or whatever it is, and then think about whether or not that made sense. You could start at 250 and find that you could adjust it downward. It's completely your decision.
And again, this is separate from the kinds of fees that people pay to use parks in the city and other things.
Right. Again, the specific issue related to, you know, a request to, you know, have a license to, you know, make use of the city's right of way. At times that's been granted. You know, I can't speak to what happened before my time, but I don't know what we charged and where that information was maintained in a kind of consistent fashion.
I think ultimately this is a good model because even when somebody sells property and then there's easements involved, it just gets very complicated going down through the years. So I kind of like this idea.
Yeah, I do too. And yeah, I guess my question is also, it feels a little bit vague in terms of time delimited authorization for a specific purpose, but we're not saying what the purpose is. Is that?
Well, that's written into the language of the license itself. And I guess so I put in time to limit. Well, first of all, I was trying to distinguish in the letter between two things that are referred to as licenses, but are very different concepts. So
Yes.
one, you know, the boarding house or hotel, motel license to operate. One is licensed to operate, one is licensed to use. And the time delimited, you know, was to distinguish from the concept of the easement that the council committee had been discussing before. because, you know, when we were talking about an easement, and I think it was, you know, Alderman Denizen who said, well, you know, when you grant an easement, you can't really
Take it back,
claw
right?
it back. I mean, you can have a conditional easement, but in general, you know, that's a different sort of approach. And so when we're thinking about a license, you know, there is a renewal at a defined period. In this case, it would be annual. There's some conditions written into any easement. And those would be different from one project to another. But what would be consistent is that the clerk's office would have an application, supporting materials, a payment. There would be a record. Ideally, that would be somehow, you know, PDF or digitized. Someone else could look through it. The council could ask for copies. They'd be available to the public as well. So it also, I think this is going to Alderwoman Hirsch's point too, that there is a kind of transparency effect as on top of just kind of getting the.
Yep.
I'm sorry, what page are we on?
It's 45. That's where the letter is.
So I have a question.
As a gift.
What if there's like a dispute, like somebody really wants that easement versus doing a license? Like, do you foresee that being a situation? We feel like we could arrive at that amicably between the applicant and the city to determine what's best, which direction to go?
That's interesting. I mean, I never really thought about that. I will give my sort of annoying municipal lawyer response, which is we're the city. And so if somebody's asking for something from the city, we'll decide. And you'll decide, and then I'll try to make it defensible. You know, that's so I'm sure there will people who want one thing, and the council will come up with some other approach, and then that's just what we'll do. Or, you know, if the council gives authority to the mayor to execute something, then, you know, that's the authority. But just because someone wants to proceed one way, you know, the city has to think about the city's best interests.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So by time delimited, this is usually for construction projects, right?
Not necessarily. It can be for any license. And again, you know, this came up in a very specific context. So we were using that as the springboard for creating an instrument, a fee in compliance. But, you know, if I sit here, I can think of other circumstances in which there might be a license outside of construction. I don't want to waste your time like coming up with all the possibilities, but it doesn't necessarily have to be limited to that.
But the time delimited component would be different. If somebody's doing, say, a 6-month construction project and they want to pay, they would be paying the same fee as someone who's going to be paying an annual use.
Interesting.
Like
So there are construction easements, right? So construction easement is different from the type of license that that was addressed in this letter. The city has granted construction easements, and they are for a different type of delimited purpose to intrude upon land, but, you know, then that sort of expires when the condition changes. That's not what this letter or item number 2 is about. But to, you know, Alderwoman Pasty's question, would someone who was getting a 6-month license pay the same as a 1-year license? You know, I hadn't thought about that. If the council would be more comfortable with a prorated approach, I guess we could, you know, write that in, but, you know, I'll just leave it there. And that had not come up when I was putting this together.
You be limiting the number of times you can do it? Like, is it the whole point of a time delimited license to be temporary?
That it doesn't go on forever. So
No, it's not the whole point. There's actually there are actually a lot of reasons why you want to grant a license, even if you want to allow someone to continue in that activity for a number of years. The issue is that, you know, when we are granting a license, it's and the applicant has to come back and, you know, satisfy conditions, seek approval time and again. It shows that the city is not actually giving up its interest in its property. And so there is a whole kind of body of case law about the public trust doctrine, for example. I don't want to go too far in that, but basically when you as a municipality are taking, affirmative steps to, yes, let something operate on your land, but you are defining, redefining, reconsidering, kind of tinkering with either the terms or the costs or the time limits, and you have discretion to either grant or not, that is your land without question, no matter what's happening there. So I'll just leave it at that. There are plenty of reasons why you want someone to come back, even if they come back many times.
Thank you.
Right, so when this is written into the fee schedule, would this then say, this would be done on a case-by-case basis, so that whoever was requesting the license to use this, to get this authorization, they would come into the city, and then depending upon how long they wanted it, it would be an annual fee, but what if they wanted it for 9 months, or, I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to understand what time delimited would mean when this is.
Like, do we set it in
written
stone?
into-
This is 6 months, this is a year, they don't get to decide that, right?
Or does the city department, each department gets to decide how long the limit of the time?
So
Otherwise, would we
I
just
don't
say
think
pay
this,
an annual fee?
so I don't think this comes up very often.
Okay,
So far, and I'm not saying it because these aren't valid and questions that might come up. I'm just saying they haven't, and so they weren't underlying the specific letter. So I tend to prefer systems that are easy to administer because you get a higher degree of compliance. So it seems like if the council settled on a 100 or 2, whatever you settle on as the fee, that can be the benchmark annual fee. If someone only were granted a license for 6 months, maybe what you want to write in is an annual, make it annual in the fee schedule, and it could be prorated. And that can address a circumstance that you guys are thinking of that was not within my contemplation, but it still keeps us within a kind of uniform, easy to administer system.
I like that.
Barbara, we can void this. We have the discretion to void this in the event we need that section of street. Can we void
Their license, yeah, their use.
yeah,
So when someone has permission, to do something like the specific circumstance that, we were talking about last month, they have permission to do that thing. Now, if we wanted to, in that example, I think, the mayor or whoever was, maybe it was Sue Cahill actually who had said it, was, maybe we could decide not to renew at some point after a certain number of years. Then we would simply not renew, and then, that individual or owner would no longer have a license to do that thing in that place. But we don't have to revoke it. I mean, all license would be revocable subject to certain conditions, and that can be written into whatever is ultimately granted, but it's not necessarily determined by the fee schedule.
I see.
Other questions?
Okay. So we need to set an amount.
Yeah.
Andrea had suggested $250. Is that, I mean, I don't know about that yet. I need to look at our schedule.
I
to sort of
certainly don't
see.
think that's unreasonable. I mean,
I don't
this
think
is
so
a great
either.
service to these people.
I
I
agree.
mean, you have the opportunity to turn over tables that would normally not be there. So, I mean, it's gotta be very lucrative for the restaurants to use those spots for tables. Where ordinarily there would be, some of those restaurants, especially downtown, are very tiny. If they didn't use the sidewalks, I don't even know how they would survive. I mean, they're only turning over 5 to 10 tables, per night. So this gives them the opportunity to probably triple their business. So I think that fee is certainly reasonable.
Okay, I would go along with that.
Yeah, and it would be applied, this would be applied to other situations, not just that.
Right, exactly.
It's almost like a rental fee, right? Like from the city, in a way. Break it down more easily.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a different category of permission. I wouldn't think about it like that, but functionally, I can see why you describe it that way. Really, again, one of my main goals was just to come up with an orderly system. And that also respected our interest in making sure that we maintain control and oversight, that when a license is being granted, that there's kind of a clear checklist. You know, you're supposed to have some insurance requirement that accompanies it, or if there's been, you know, if the city has received an inordinate number of complaints for one reason or another, there are certain conditions about how the property is supposed to be used. And if, you know, that use was not, if those conditions were not complied with, then that would be reason to not renew a license as well. And right now, I don't think there's much in place that kind of gives us that framework.
So this applies for any city property though, like for the same use for the sidewalk tables as for a parking spot, outdoor dining? Or is that a separate license?
So
It seem like separate costs to use, you know, La Canard does not use a parking space, they use the sidewalk versus Stockade Tavern uses the
parking
parking space and not the sidewalk. It seems like maybe that one might be more valuable than the other.
Do we have that on our fee schedule? I can't remember.
So what is it?
Like having the restaurants, like the restaurants and the outdoor dining.
Is that separate?
On the fee schedule
Yeah.
itself?
Because those do seem like separate values.
Oh, okay. Don't think so.
Yeah, I think that's kind of separate.
I apologize for asking this question.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking, I thought this was mostly about Ms. Hauser's letter, and I got all confused.
There's a permit for sidewalk cafe.
Okay.
For a building.
Oh, that's a separate.
Okay, so it is separate.
An application for
Okay.
a sidewalk cafe, which is separate.
And what is the fee for that?
The application's $150, the permit's $250.
Oh, so
That's also
okay.
temporary.
Fee is not,
Yeah, so.
it's not,
Yeah.
yeah.
What a coincidence.
Wow.
So are we decided on 250 then?
Yeah, good.
As an annual fee that can be prorated as needed.
Yes. So let me, if I may, read this, Barbara, and you can tell me how wrong it is. Because they have both the word annual and time delimited in there, I wasn't sure from what we're saying whether we need both or just one.
I would say annual, based on the conversation that you guys have had, annual fee.
Okay, so it reads in set annual fee for licenses that confer authorization to use and or intrude upon municipal property for a specified purpose at $250. Requests for a license of less than 1 year may be prorated.
That sounds great.
That sounds good. Good job, Brandon.
I'm just listening to what you say.
But you're paying attention.
Although,
I know it's hard though. You're interrupting my CNN reading here. So.
to further throw a monkey.
That was a joke. People are listening. That was a joke.
Is that I was still stuck in a sort of construction mindset to encourage fast turnaround of construction times and use of those easements. But if we are referring to the lucrative aspect of outdoor dining and the benefits that that provides our community, you know,
But that's separate.
300, that's separate?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
All
just
right,
what
I'm
John
gonna
is
stop
saying.
talking. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
it's
stop
separate.
talking.
It's separate.
The other thing there is
It just seems to prorate it when they're using it for 6 months, when it's that lucrative in those 6 months seems.
No, there's a separate fee that John just mentioned.
but we also get money. We get money from those through taxes too. So that,
Okay.
that's one.
Okay,
That's
I'm
a
alternative,
benefit.
I'm gonna stop talking.
Okay. I would like to note too, because a couple of people raised a concern about this particular piece of property relating to sidewalk, and there currently is not a sidewalk along South Wall Street there. So what they're doing, I think actually will, because right now it's an auto dealership, and they have cars parked basically right up to what would be the curb. So the new construction there would be adding definite curbs with specific curb cuts to limit ingress and egress safely, but also at the corner of South Wall Street and Route 32, it would also, they're gonna put in some greenery there, and so I think it'll be a much nicer looking spot. There will not be a sidewalk, unfortunately, a sidewalk on the other side of the street, at least one that continues all the way down South Wall. So that would be something to look at, would be extending that sidewalk down South Wall at least to, what's that street? That little street that's just down there. Anyway, that's just point of information.
And just to bring up another little wrinkle is I had a communication from someone, from Tommy Garmin actually, mentioning that perhaps now that there's a new code, that these requirements are put in place when there's the old code, but now that there's a new one, perhaps there doesn't need to be as much space taken away. I mean, there could just be one curb cut as opposed to a longer one, fewer parking spaces, so it could be more walkable. So I don't know about, I don't know.
If you look at the plans, it's very tight what they've got.
Okay.
And so I don't think, this is not the result of a parking minimums requirement by the code. It's
This is a plan that's
request-
been approved by.
It's a request from the business that's going in there,
Okay.
for what it's worth. All right, so we have a motion to discuss.
Motion.
Motion by Michelle Hirsch, second by.
Second.
All right, I read the description. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you for your work on
Thank
this,
you,
Barbara.
Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience in dealing with our questions.
No, they were really good questions. I just had not thought, you guys were thinking about things from different perspectives based on your wards, and I was coming at it from one way. I think this is a more robust approach.
And for those of you who weren't here for that meeting, the company is called Lucky Green Ladies. All right,
Okay,
just another point of information.
onward.
We're now moving on to item 11, which is library financing and tax compliance agreement. This is page 47 in the material. The basic idea here is to give the mayor the power, permission to execute the document relating to the $14 million bond for improvements at the Kingston Library. We passed this last year, and it's in essence a pass-through, so it's $0 financial impact, $0 financial impact.
And just to clarify, I did email a newer red line version of the agreement earlier today.
Is that what this is?
Yeah, you probably have a hard copy of that. So the backstory, this agreement we've been working on since basically the bond authorization was put in place. I knew we had a deadline of, the communications getting in Friday. There was one subsequent meeting between Barbara, our bond counsel, and the library's attorney. It made some minor changes to the agreement that's in that red line version, but that red line version is what we're asking for authorization for the mayor to execute that agreement. And what it does essentially, it just establishes responsibilities for both parties, since we are dealing with tax exempt bond monies. And, essentially in some ways, the city is a kind of an intermediary of these monies, but, we do have ultimate responsibility because they are borrowing. They're coming through the city, and we are the issuer of these bonds. So, this agreement, it covers a number of areas. If you read through it, it's tax matters, it's compliance matters, it's use of proceeds, et cetera. So.
Does anybody want a hard copy?
I'll take a hard copy. I did look through it, but I didn't have time, I didn't see the red line version. But I imagine that the changes or not that significant?
Yeah, I think Barbara worked through, with our bond council, libraries council. The red line changes seem pretty straightforward.
I can talk about those very briefly. The bond issues were non-substantive. As far as I could tell, though, in full disclosure, I defer to our bond counsel on that point, and that's his area of expertise, and they aligned with other statutory obligations that had already been identified, but sort of spelled them out in a little bit more detail. The two issues that I focused on were there's an indemnification provision, I believe it's 5.1E, that did not, there was a carve out. So basically the library has a very broad indemnification requirement, but there is a limited carve out for wrongful, was it intentional acts, misconduct, and they added in negligence. And so we had some back and forth about that negligence that in the remote, chance that something like that would come up, we would be insured for. And so that was one change. The other change had to do with, well, actually, I guess there were three. They were ADR related. So one, there was a proposal. I decided not to make the change, but we have an alternative dispute resolution provision that I think I've talked to the council before. I've been trying to add certain ADR requirements to at least limit the scope of what has to be litigated if a dispute occurs. So you'll see a kind of mandatory or an attempt to first have binding mediation. And then if that does not work out to resolve the dispute, some arbitration. We changed the language about arbitration by the American Arbitration Association just because that tends to be more costly and we could go with another provider. And then that's very minor. The other one had to do with the library's obligation for attorney's fees. It just struck that, again, normally parties are responsible for their own fees. There are some types of agreements where, especially in the construction context, and this might be familiar to some folks who've been on the council for a while, we've had attorney's fees issues in the construction context, and they can be high. This is a very different type of arrangement, and one that even during our conversation seemed like in the remote chance that it did end up in a dispute, this would be kind of well suited for arbitration, as opposed to going through a costly litigation.
Right.
So those changes, again, they don't affect the substance of the deal documents that John circulated, what is it, on Thursday or Friday?
Okay,
Okay.
questions? Michael?
Yes, so it references library building. That's referring to the one on Franklin Street, not the CME building, correct?
Not the which building?
It's the one on Franklin.
The real library.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Hearing no questions, we'll take a motion to discuss. Motion. Steve Shabbat. Second, Tierney. All right, the request for the report reads, authorize the mayor to execute the financing and tax compliance agreement related to the $14 million library bond, $14 million library bond ordinance adopted in June 2023. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, now we're flying through these things. All right, next item, number 12. This is on page 63 in the materials. This relates to the CSEA contract. This is to cover the costs of the retroactive employee salary required by the settlement of the CSEA contract approved by the Common Council in October 2023. It has a financial impact of $886,530, which would be taken from the general fund. Anything you want to say about it?
This is, just really, if anything, it's just housekeeping. The common council approved this with the AMOA back in October. After that point, part of that MOA was provided for retroactive pay, for bargaining unit members. The transfer that's before you tonight, covers the calculated amount that was paid to those members. And traditionally, those amounts would be paid either out of contingency or fund balance, so, there's not enough, as you know from my report, there's not enough money in contingency. I'm asking for it to be paid from fund balance, and this is just, once again, it's housekeeping, just to make sure that these lines aren't, overspent. By doing this too, it's gonna relieve every department of the responsibility of requesting a transfer for
Right,
this from their
exactly.
department, so,
Yeah.
items of this nature I try to cover.
Makes sense.
The only thing that this won't cover with the CSEA, MOA regarding to 2023 is there's a small period in which from the fourth quarter of the year where the employee salaries went up. The original budget that was adopted was based on the old salaries. Some departments are gonna be able to cover that internally through transfers. Some may need to cover that small difference. Yeah, through contingency or fund balance, when they submit their year-end transfers. But this covers the retroactive component of it.
All right,
Now, in the committee report that I'm seeing here, there are two different numbers.
Yes,
Budgetary transfer totaling 889,530, but the estimated financial impact is 886,530.
yeah, just if you look at the detail, there's just one. The impact is 886,530. We're actually moving money from one retro pay to
Oh, I
a
see.
retro pay category, 3,000.
I see.
It's just,
Yep.
the original. Retro pay. We had to reclass one of the one here, retro pay was. When we originally submitted the retro pay, one of the retro pay went to a retiree and they were entitled under the agreement.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of where the payment was coded,
It's
so.
a different account,
Yeah,
that's
I
it.
mean,
Okay,
the
no,
note
that's
was like
fine.
86530.
Okay,
Why do these different, twos, why do they range so much from 131 all the way down to 531?
It's just, why does it range?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, this is the actual home department, the employees that receive those payments. So for an example, that the top one, 8160, they just have more employees in that department than others. That's refuse and garbage, so that's all your CSA refuse and garbage.
Okay.
As you kind of scroll
They're
down
not
here.
for individual employees, so we didn't owe one employee.
No. These are basically, this is on a department by department total basis, so.
yeah.
It's, as you scroll down, like you kind of get down into like towards the bottom, you get into like one person, two person departments.
Gotcha.
Like purchasing is a one person department, parking violations is a approximately one person department, et cetera, so.
Okay,
It was an all-star this weekend.
what's that?
Did a good job this weekend.
You did?
They were out there, the parking crew was out
Oh,
there.
that's right, yeah.
yeah.
They were out there,
Good job.
they worked, I can tell you, Benny didn't get much sleep. I mean, he worked almost, he had a small break, but he was here from 7 o'clock Saturday till the end of the storm on Sunday.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
our one part-timer came in for, I believe it was a 14-hour shift. Our other full-time, parking, officer, he came in and he worked, I think it was somewhere around 17 hours. But they really killed it out there. It's a good working relationship they have. Department of Public Works right now. It's good coordination. I'm fortunate we have a good crew out there.
You do.
And keep in mind, overtime's not mandatory for them. They never hesitate. They always come in. They do a good job. I get very few complaints, if any, really, about their work. So,
They went on my street.
They weren't thinking of it.
Bunch of people that didn't move their cars.
They weren't all reminding
Yeah, I know, the focus.
You have a reputation.
I do. I got an email from them this morning.
The focus was on the snow emergency routes and, but they essentially know where public works asks them to go. Then they coordinate with the, writing the tickets, in some cases the towing, unfortunately it happens, but, they're really just as an assistance to, DPW so they can get their job done.
And it seems like DPW with plowing went much better now with the new contract and the mandatory overtime as well, so. That's,
They did use the mandatory
Yeah.
overtime provision, my understanding. Let Ed speak to that, but, I believe when they went through the call-ins, they had to call a couple of people back, using that provision, so bottom line, the contract provision is helpful, at least.
Yeah.
it's-
and our streets were, fairly.
I thought so, yeah.
So, the
Okay.
the transfer you have is for the general fund piece, and the next transfer is for the sewer fund piece.
All right, so the report reads, on behalf of all city departments, I respectfully request approval of the attached general fund budgetary transfer totaling $889,000, $530. The purpose of this transfer is to cover the costs of the retroactive employee salary required by the settlement of the CSCA contract approved by the Common Council in October 2023. The funding source is fund balance in the general fund, with the estimated financial impact at $886,530. Motion discussed.
She got there first.
I'll take yours as a second then. All right, any discussion?
I think we covered it.
Okay, we very much appreciate all the work that CSCA employees do for the city. So all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Sarah? So the next one is basically the same thing, just in the sewer fund. So do we have a motion to discuss?
Motion.
Okay. Basky makes the motion, Steve Shabbat makes the second. It reads, on behalf of all city departments, I respectfully request approval of the attached sewer fund budgetary transfer totaling $150,318. The purpose of this transfer is to cover the costs of the retroactive employee salary required by the settlement of the CSCA contract approved by the Common Council in October 2023. Funding source is fund balance in the sewer fund. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. And then related,
The next two transfers, the first one is in general fund medical accounts. This is to reconcile all the overages and underages of all medical related employee benefit accounts for the city. So the first one's gonna be general fund, the second one is sewer. First is general, second is sewer. As I mentioned earlier tonight, the general fund, I am asking for a draw from contingency to cover that one. In the amount of $239,479.
right? So this report reads, on behalf of all city departments, request approval of the attached budgetary transfer totaling $510,358 to reconcile 2022 general fund employee benefit medical accounts. Total financial impact of $239,479 is to be funded through contingency. Motion to discuss.
Motion, second.
Sarah Paskey makes the motion. Steve Shadow makes the sleepy second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. And then the next one.
The next one is just the sewer fund transfer. We did have enough money internally to cover the transfer, so there is no financial impact from that transfer.
All right, so this report reads, on behalf of all city departments, request approval of the attached budgetary transfer totaling $42,320 to reconcile 2023 sewer fund employee benefit medical accounts. There is no financial impact from this transfer. Motion to discuss. Sarah Pasty, second by Steve Shabbat. And any discussion? Hearing no discussion, call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. And the last thing is the audit services.
Yes.
But that doesn't require a vote.
It does.
Oh, it does?
It's a contract that has to be signed,
Well,
compensation to sign.
The common council appoints our auditors, so, we're making a recommendation based on the RFP. Is there a committee report there? If not, I can draw it up. I apologize, yeah, I can draw it up. What page is that, is it starting?
It starts at 87.
87, okay. So we, I tried to keep the council, our intention to do an RFP for the audit. Late last year, we issued an RFP for the audit. We got our responses back. We had a review team of 3 individuals, myself, Pat Massa from my department is our administrative account clerk. He probably interfaced with the auditors in our office. I probably interfaced the most. He would probably be the second most. And then we also asked Amanda Brook from Community Development to sit on the panel as well because Community Development has a separate audit. It's incorporated into our audit, but they actually have a separate engagement and they get billed separately for it. So Amanda, myself, and Pat reviewed the responses. There were just 2 responses. It went out, we had 2, our current auditor and then the FPR group out of Williamsville, New York, towards the Buffalo area, responded. We unanimously recommend the FPR group based upon the RFP. We initially reviewed all the responses without looking at the fees first, just to get, try to do it from a quality standpoint.
Right.
And, while the differences were, in some cases, some reviewers, had a little larger difference than others. We all ranked EFPR's proposal as the strongest of the 2. And then from a price standpoint, we finally got the price. Their price was significantly less as well. So, that said, we've had a good experience with our current auditors. So, that it was a tough decision on my end because, we worked with them for, it's been 10 years now and they've done a good job. And but we're optimistic that the new group will do a good job as well. Sometimes it's good just have a fresh set of eyes come in and take a look at things. So the way the process would work is, they both provided guaranteed fees for 5 years. So it would be, you'd engage them for 2 years and then we'd have an option to renew each year for the next 3 years. And, presumably we would, do this RFP process again. The auditors that we currently have, RBT, 10 years ago, we brought them in as, we had a different audit firm at that time. We brought them in as the RFP process. 5 years later, we did an RFP again. That time we retained RBT. And this time, we're recommending a switch. And I have to say, it's not because of dissatisfaction at all of our current auditors. I feel like they did a good job. But, it's. it's an open and transparent competitive process.
Okay.
Just for some background, the FDR group locally, they already audit the land bank, they audit, KLDC,
Yeah, I saw
they audit the town of Ulster. They've done a number of engagements with the actual New York State Controller's Office as well. If you're aware, some of these audit firms, there was a group called Toski, had a good name, and this is EFPR is the old Toski group basically. So, so the EFPR does a number of engagements in this area. So
their client base looked
yeah, it's
really
spread out.
pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, but I mean, both firms have a lot of New York State municipal clients. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. EFPR group's slightly bigger. They have, more municipal clients. But, RBT has a very good number as well. I mean, you look at some of the clients they have, they're, some of our local cities, so. But, this move, we thought from a quality standpoint, we, rank the proposal stronger. It'll save money for the city,
That's
so.
great.
So, my recommendation is to appoint the FPR group as, the city's independent auditors.
And virtually, all but one of them are products of the State University of New York university system.
I saw that too.
Yeah, the partners on it. It's nice, we did a Zoom meeting with them, they seem, very, enthusiastic to start the audit and get moving, so.
And will they assign the particular people who'll be working with you?
Yeah, so, as part of their proposal, they indicated who the partner was and who the I think it was the engagement manager
Right, I
and
think so.
potentially supervisor, past experiences on my end and, having been an auditor and having interacted with our auditors here for 15 years, you get to that staff level and they turn over very quickly.
Yeah.
The people who are coming in asking for vouchers and reviewing them, those individuals seem to, if you see the same person 2 years in a row, you're pretty fortunate. They seem to turn over a lot just because that's just the nature of the beast that, but it's your senior people who, you hope stick on, your managers, your partners. Our current firm, we're lucky we had, one partner who we've been with for a number of years and a manager who's been with us for a while. But I'm comfortable that, the new firm we'll have some consistency with them as well. So.
Did the old firm choose not to apply for the RFP?
Oh, no,
No, they did. They were the other.
Yeah, they did. They can as well. They're both very strong proposals. It's kind of like choosing between a Porsche and Lamborghini or whatever. It's really hard. It's hard to make these choices. I mean, I can kind of see through what's written in a RFP and, like the responses, and I know from interactions with the firms, I tend to have a feeling of, level of competency and everything, and, our existing firm is good. This new firm had good references. I contact all the references. They're all good. It's just on paper, they had, the strongest proposal. They're all licensed CPAs. They have, a number of municipal clients. So.
If they don't work out, you're not stuck with them forever.
No, we're stuck with for 2 years,
Right,
so,
I'm
we'll
sure they
continue to
will work out.
maintain a good relationship with our, our existing and, now soon to be prior auditors. They understand that, this is a competitive process of business and that, they can be in the mix again in the future. So we're certainly not leaving over any audit disagreements or hard feelings or, anything like that. They've been a good company to work with. So, certainly, hopefully I can be a reference for them as well.
Yes. Okay,
It's kind of tough of it.
I bet it's fun.
It is what, you get used to working with them, and it's,
Right.
But, it's like I said, sometimes after 10 years, it's good just
I-
just get another look and, I would expect the first year they come in, they may look at some things a little differently than the old audit firm. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some recommendations that they would have maybe that we didn't see in the past. And, that's always a good thing, we do what we have to do to continue to improve our operations, so.
Okay,
So that's my spiel.
okay, good to know.
So, I can go to the committee report if you'd like.
Yes,
Okay.
if you will write it up, I appreciate it.
It's not the committee it went to, but I would like to point out that the city is charged $250 per towing. Maybe we should have a municipal towing force.
Hire more staff. City assessors. I just don't understand. Yeah. That makes sense. I see.
I kept it simple,
Hire the new guy. Request, hire the new guy.
Slightly more than that, not much.
All right, the report reads, appoint EFPR Group CPAs PLLC as the city's independent auditors. Estimated financial impact is $0. Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, motion, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, call for the
Thank you,
vote.
John.
Yeah.
Well,
Vote,
Yes.
Aye.
aye, anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Motion to adjourn.
What about old
There's a piece of
business?
Old business, but.
That was, wasn't that taken care of with what we're talking about with Barbara?
No,
No.
no, this
Oh,
is the
sorry.
trees, but this,
I looked
this
into
doesn't,
that.
I think it should just go to laws and rules, so,
I do think the penalty should be higher.
yeah.
I checked in Beacons. It was,
Yeah.
It's 350
Okay.
there.
Nice.
Not that much,
Well,
yeah.
let's do low. But Barbara, did you have something to say about the old business item, Barbara?
I did not, but I heard my name, so I put on the camera, but I don't think I have anything to add to this discussion.
Yeah, I didn't come to you yet because I was trying to be sensitive to the staffing issues in the office, so, it's not urgent, and I usually think it should probably maybe go to laws and rules because it's not on the fee schedule, so. Yeah.
All right, so Elissa, can you coordinate with Andrea to see about moving this item to laws and rules?
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we're adjourned, Elissa, thank you.
Thank you.
Did we vote on adjourning?
Night.
I assume